All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. This is the You Still Can podcast, hosted by the one, the only Tanisha L. Bowman. Listen, y'all, I am the definition of You Still Can because I am still canning of all cans because we serve an absolutely amazing God. And we have here with us today Miss Shawn M. Pearson, y'all. Let's give it up. Listen, founder of the Zion Institute and CEO of Whisper Consulting. Woo! We
Thank
are
you.
excited.
Thank
Listen,
you.
so excited to have you here with us today. Listen, y'all, do us a favor. If you are watching with us today, first of all, go ahead and say hello. Let us know what state are you watching from. All right. I know that Miss Shawn is going to be the person from in the farthest distance from me that I have interviewed so far in the lovely state of Arizona, where the temperature is 184 degrees.
Yes,
Okay.
all the time.
But
Right.
yes, let us know. Yes, all the time. Oh my God. Let us know where you are coming in from. Also, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and share the live. Okay. Put it out there into the social media world. Tag a friend. This is going to be an episode that you do not want to miss, from broken to blessed. And when I tell y'all that this young lady is blessed, I know she look blessed, but she even more blessed than she looks. Okay. So you definitely want to have your girlfriends, your mom, your sister, your daughter, your cousins, your aunties, whoever in here. So as you go ahead and tag and tell us where you're from, I am going to open the floor up to Miss Shawn. And Miss Shawn, we want to know, who are you? Tell us about you.
That is the $10 million question. It depends on who you ask in terms of who I serve, but who God says I am his daughter. I am his example of a virtuous woman. And then there's so many other titles. I am a wife. I am a mother of six. I am a grandmother of 16. I am a social impact entrepreneur. I'm a philanthropist. I'm an apostle in the kingdom for God's work. I am an author. I am just Shawn. I'm sister, daughter, all those many things that virtuous women have to be, all the hats that we wear.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Listen, you said a grandmother of 16.
Yes, ma'am.
What a blessing that is.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Our
could
quiver
just see
is
the
full.
Christmas tree. Oh my God.
Well, we
Oh
are
my
blessed.
God, that is
They're
such a
across three
blessing. I
different
love it.
states. Yeah, it is a beautiful experience to be a grandmother. There's so much more that I have figured out about parenting and nurturing and guiding, younger souls. And so I get the beauty of being able to share that with all of them. Now, number 16 is still in the oven. They're cooking. We're praying that it's a boy, but we're gonna take whatever God says. But they are definitely brewing. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. So listen, hello, Miss Emma. Hello, everybody that is coming in. Hello, Sonny. Hello, TF. Hello, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining. So, out of all the amazing accomplishments that you have and who you are, the most powerful thing we know that you said is that you're a child of God.
yes, ma'am.
You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
and being
Absolutely.
that you are, being that you are a child of God, that is why you have went from broken to blessed, I am sure.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. For his glory. So the
Yeah,
testimony of my life is really
yeah.
his story in my life. It is not my own story. So I get the blessing of sharing it with
Woo!
others to
Listen, y'all.
inspire others.
Yes, listen, y'all. I pray that y'all are listening because it is already deep. You know, one of the things, Shawn, and y'all, this is so off record, but one of the things that God had to make very clear to me not too long ago, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure this volume is down. One of the things he had to make very clear to me not too long ago is, if I don't open my mouth and share my testimony, then he can't get the glory.
That's right. That's right. It's not our
Yes,
story. It's,
yes,
it's his story in
yes.
our life. Right.
Listen, you already done started preaching, okay? So, all right, we're going to go ahead and we are going to get we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started because when I tell y'all this is going to be amazing, just trust and believe me that it is going to be amazing, y'all. And I apologize. I have some sound on my end over here. Do you hear anything extra, Sean? Sean?
No echoes at this time.
Okay, all right, perfect. Then it's just me. I'm gonna roll with it. All right, so here we go.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Okay.
So in our chat, you talked a little bit about you experienced a significant amount of loss.
Yes.
Okay, amount of
Yes.
loss early in life.
Yeah.
How did losing your brother at 11 and your mother by 18 shape your outlook on life and faith at that time?
Well, at that time, being an 11-year-old and losing what was like my father figure was difficult, to say the least. The probably the most difficult part about it was that his passing was sudden. He actually did shoot himself, attempting suicide, and then passed away from the infection from his gunshot wounds. And so it was unfortunately very tragic for the family. My mother losing her oldest son, but then having it happen so quickly, and then ultimately getting the news that he was gone, but then being told by our mother that we couldn't cry. And it was only on her deathbed that she shared, she couldn't stand to see all of us cry. If she had started crying, she never would have stopped. That was what she said to me, as I was blessed to be her caregiver when I was 18. She unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer as I was on my way to college, and I elected to stay home and become my mother's caregiver instead. And I tell you, that was the most valuable experience for me, to be able to have time to ask her questions about things I always wanted to understand that I couldn't as a as a child. Um, but also the loss at such an early age was difficult because I didn't get to ask the questions about what does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to fall in love? I didn't get the all of those talks about, what does true intimacy look like? Although being quite honest, I don't know that my mother's answers would have been biblical at all. My mother accepted Christ on her deathbed, and I actually got to witness that. And so, again, just being so grateful for still being here, but feeling like God had betrayed me. Unfortunately, my first suicide attempt was at 19, the year after my mother passed. And I had found out I was pregnant with my first child while my mother was passing, and she was not around to see him be born. She passed away 2 months before my first child was born. But I remember praying a prayer and asking God to leave my mother and take my child, because I could always have another child, but I only had one mother. And so it was a very devastating season that caused me to question, who is God really? um, and why do I have to stay if I don't know how to do these things that I'm called to do? Becoming a mother very early, becoming a wife very early, consequently, really getting married to try and overshadow the shame of being pregnant out of wedlock. And of course, being a
Yeah.
young woman and president of Build a Better Boyfriend Club, I thought I would grow to love him and all those things that we think as an 18, 19-year-old. But the devastation of the loss of a mother does not have words. Um, but I'm grateful for my journey. I can say that. I can say that it developed a courage in me, a fortitude in me, a perseverance in me, as my mother did. She was a single parent. My parents divorced early. And I can remember so many times as a child, my mother waking us up in the middle of the night, and she would say, "Who are you?" And of course, my natural response is going to be, "I'm Shawn." And she'd say, "No." And I eventually understood that what she was trying to get us to say was that we are a survivor. And she would have me and my brothers repeat this 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. She'd just wake us up out of the blue. "Who are you?" And we'd have to say, "I'm a survivor." And again, not understanding what that was all about as a child, but certainly, now that I'm in my 50s, actually my 30s, my 40s, and throughout until I got to my 50s, where I really began to thrive in life and not survive. Everything that my mother had instilled in me about having to be a survivor is what brought me through the crises of poverty, the crises of, abuse in the marriages, infidelities, homelessness, and different things that I endured as a young adult. That those 20s and 30s trying to figure out life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good. You said so much that was a mouthful then, because you really didn't get the opportunity to properly grieve your brother, you know,
Right.
and then you had to learn how to grieve your mother because your mother was no longer there to tell you how to grieve or
That's
how
right.
not to grieve.
That's right.
And Sean, one of the things, and we won't get too deep into this, but even when I think about your story, because it relates to so many people,
Hmm.
um, I'm sure there were some generational things that your mom dealt with to have
Absolutely.
her in that space as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
generational bondage of trauma untreated, mental illness untreated, the shame of being in poverty unaddressed, all of those things, and I think my mother's sickness was a result of her bitterness and the sorrow of her own
yeah,
personal journey. So I absolutely agree with
yeah,
you. There's so
yeah.
much more to it.
So much more to it. And I thank God for people like you now with the Zion Institute, because even when you say trauma and mental illness, those things wasn't even tapped into back in the days,
No,
the
no,
resources and the things that we have now, because people have chose to overcome and dive deep into that. We didn't hear about mental illness back then. We didn't hear about trauma. I promise you, I think trauma is a word I probably just start hearing a couple of years, unless somebody was
right,
in a trauma unit in the hospital.
right,
um,
right.
so yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Says witnessing your parent accepting God on their deathbed is a piercing experience. It is. That is
It
amazing.
absolutely was.
That is
And
absolutely amazing. That's the God we serve.
that, well, and she accepted him in a space where I was familiar with, I had heard about. I was not raised in church, so I went on Easter and the holidays when my aunts would buy me the cute little frilly dresses and the patent leather shoes, and I could go sing, with the kids choir for the holiday, or I could, go recite my little lines for the Christmas plays that they would do. But I was not a church goer, nor was my mother, and so to hear her pray a prayer and ask the Lord actually to
Mhm.
take her and to end her pain and to ask him for forgiveness. It was surreal to experience that. And it
Yeah.
was almost a year later when I accepted Christ. So it was
Mm.
definitely something to remember.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's all God. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much to everyone that is tuning in. If you are on the YouTube channel, I do see you. Make sure that you say your name so that I can see your actual name. I see you here, but I can't see your name on the YouTube channel. So make sure you say your name. We are so excited to have you here. If you missed the first part, then you have to go back and you have to catch the replay, because that was just absolutely amazing. So I want to tap into really quick because, I love that when we are truly healed, even through everything that you just said, I still found your sense of humor in there. And you said that you were part of the Build a Boyfriend campaign.
Yes, I tell people I was
I will be
president of
using
Build a
that
Better
in the
Boyfriend
future.
Club. Yes, yes. It was the trauma of my childhood. Unfortunately, one of those traumas was sexual abuse, and so my virginity was
Yeah.
taken from me as a little girl before I even had
Mhm.
good memories. And I believe that I was younger than 6 years old. I still am not clear about exactly how old I was, but that set up in me subconsciously that self perception that I was not worthy, and so I had to measure
That's what
up.
I
I
was going to
needed
ask
to.
you. How did that
Yes,
impact your self worth?
it
Yeah.
definitely impacted my perception of who I was. I had no God consciousness. I had no clear picture of my identity as a child, other than, you know, being the children of my child of my parents and wanting to be the overperforming, overachieving child that would stay out of the way, not cause trouble, be the peacemaker, you know, all of those things. But when it came to wanting affection and companionship and all those things, I looked for the most broken individual in the neighborhood, and I wanted to make him the model citizen, you know. And I carried that even into young adulthood and being married. I call them my practice husbands. I was married twice before the husband I have now, who is my gift from God. He truly is God's love for me manifested through a man. But the practice husbands, I was in the Build a Better Boyfriend Club. And so I would love them and hug them and rub them and send them to rehab and pay all the bills when they didn't want to work and just all that. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
gave up that
yeah.
title.
That's good. Right, right. That's good that you are, really open and honest about that. So to get to where you are now from there, we know that we don't just wake up one night and it's happened. What steps did you take for your
Um,
healing journey to get to where you are now?
Honestly, my healing journey really began at 26. I was in my second marriage. It was failing. Unfortunately, I was married to a gentleman that was severely wounded and addicted to drugs. And in that marriage, I lost everything but my children and my job. But I found myself feeling really defeated, feeling like I had let the world down. World famine was my fault and my perception. And remember, I hadn't been taught what a marriage should look like. I hadn't been taught what a wife should be. So it was trial and error, trial by fire, really. But at 26, I decided to take my own life. And so at 25, I actually started writing a journal
Mm,
to my children because I remembered the experience I had with my mother, being able to actually ask questions of her on her deathbed. But I knew my children had a lot of things they had seen and probably wouldn't understand. And I knew I was going to be leaving them. And so I started a journal to explain to them different significant moments that they experienced to help them understand what they were. But at the end of writing the journal, I wrote letters of apology to my father, my brothers, my husband, those that were dear to me. And then I took some Tylenol with codeine, some Kahlua and milk, and laid down on my couch and was ready to just stop hurting. And I thank God for marijuana. Although I don't smoke it, my brother who did thought I was at work and decided to raid my refrigerator. So he came to my house and actually opened my front door with the key that was in my pet rock out front. And he found me on my couch and took me to the hospital. And I had an opportunity
mm,
to spend 7 days in the psychiatric unit of the hospital that I worked at. So it was absolutely a very humbling experience. Um, but in that
yeah.
experience, I was angry with God and I was angry with myself. I said, I can't even kill myself right. So I am crying out to God. I'm yelling at God
Mm,
actually. And I said, you made me stay here. What am I supposed to
yeah.
do? I don't know how to be a wife. I don't know how to do this mother
Mm,
thing. I can't do anything right. And that was literally my first
yeah.
experience of hearing the Holy Spirit speak to me and say, I've called you to be my example of a virtuous woman. And I had a concept of virtue, but I literally had to wait until I was discharged from the hospital. And I went and looked up virtuous to see what it meant, to make sure that my understanding of it was what Webster's dictionary at the time defined it as. And it said of good moral character. Now, this was a year of lots of things that have no statute of limitations, so I won't talk about them on the podcast. However, I knew what I had done last summer, and I was clearly not a appropriate moral woman. And so I said, I'm not worthy of that. He's got the wrong Shawn. I'm not ready to. I'm not ready to own all my stuff. I had justifications for all of my poor choices. And so for 7 years, I ran from that. I'm not worthy of that. I can't measure up to that. You know, my teen years of being promiscuous, my young adult life of being married, 2 failed marriages, now 3 children that I don't know how to raise. Just all the choices I had made, whether they were choices I had made or choices from other people that I had endured, I didn't feel worthy of that call. And so running for those 7 years landed me in Arizona. It was truly divine for me. At the time of my suicide attempt, I lived in California, and God planted me in Arizona. He dangled the carrot of a job opportunity with a house and a new beginning for me and my children after my second divorce. And so moving to Arizona was like God bringing me to a place that He would show me, because I knew no one here. It was an opportunity to begin again. But more than anything, it was an opportunity for me to get to know who God was, because there were some crises that happened in that relocation when the job fell apart, and I ended up homeless with my children. But I was too proud to tell my family what had happened, because they weren't really supportive of me leaving Arizona with no support. And I toughed it out, but I toughed it out with God instead of trying to wear my cape and figure out how to do it. It was really a season of, God, I need you to show me how to do this. I'm still here. You told me what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do. Show me how to do it. And so from
Yeah.
2001 to 2003 was a real boot camp. 2004, 5, 6, 7, even more boot camp, a graduation of that. But the ministry that is Zion Institute now really began in 2003 as a ministry called Ambitious Ladies of Today. And it was the outward expression of my healing being shared with other women, other single moms. And then it evolved into me working with the mothers and the fathers of children. And it was really a projection of my own pain and my own experiences. I want to be there for the moms like no one could be there for me. I want to be there for the fathers that want to be there for their children, but nobody's teaching them how. And then that work, of course,
Yeah.
evolved into what is now Zion Institute. So we've done housing for fathers. We're now doing childcare preschool. We're doing integrated healthcare, early childhood education, and then teaching others how to launch businesses. But in all of that, what God did in this teaching me how to be a virtuous woman was, one, helping me understand what He meant by it, and then helping me walk it out in my own life. And in 2014, He told me to tell His story in my life. And so that brought about the
Yeah.
second book that was written. So,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, one of the main things I heard you say in all of that, in order for that transformation to even begin to happen, of course, you had to give it to God and stop doing it yourself. But you said, I had to own my stuff.
yes.
And that hit deep, because when I think about times where, I guess I can call it a relapse, where I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go the right way. And then I'll, end up turning around and doing other stuff. I wasn't ready to own my stuff. There
Hmm.
were some things that I didn't want to be exposed. There were some things that I was allowing the enemy to keep holding bondage,
Yes.
and making me
Yes.
ashamed to talk about or ashamed to release,
Yes.
and things of the sort. So I wasn't ready to own my stuff. And when you are ready to own your stuff, that means that you realize that the ownership is not yours, that you
Yes.
can give it to God. But
Exactly.
if you don't take control of it, and if you're not ready to own it, then who is it that you're going to give it to? Because you don't know what you're giving out.
That's right. I have a
That's
mentor who
good.
tells me
That's good.
often, rise up, enter in, and take responsibility. She tells me that all the time.
Yes.
And anytime
Now
there's
hashtag
something,
that. Rise up,
okay,
enter in, and take responsibility. I want to see that
yes,
in the comments.
yes. But it really is a stand
That's
up
good.
in the authority of who I am as a child of God with every bit of the strength that the Holy Spirit gives me. Enter into whatever assignment it is He has for me to do, and wherever it is, and take
Yes.
responsibility for what my part is in it. No more, no less. Don't jump in and be God. Take
No
off the
more.
cape. I'm not the savior, but do my part. And sometimes my part is simply
Yes.
telling my story or telling His story of my life.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Listen, the enemy can't knock me down if I'm standing up in Christ.
Amen. Amen.
So I love it. All right. Okay. So let's move on. So that takes us to, because you did talk about, you did talk about dealing with the suicide. So now, was
Mhm.
this your second attempt? Because when you were
It was
26.
actually my third. It was third time's a charm. God
Okay.
spoke that third time. The first and second times, I was a very young woman. 19 was the first time, right after my mother passed away. Really deep in depression in my seventh, eighth month of
Yeah.
pregnancy when she passed. And then the second time was at 21, when I started to actually remember the trauma of the
Mhm.
sexual abuse. I was going through some things in my marriage which triggered some of the childhood memories. And so, thankfully, intermittently, I would actually go for mental health support. I would get counseling. They would give me medication, but I didn't like being on the meds. And my goal was to get to the root cause of what is causing me to feel the depression, what's causing me to feel the anxiety. I didn't want to numb it with medication. And I'm not against medication when it's necessary, but I wasn't looking for a band aid. I wanted total healing. And for me, that was possible if I would just deal with those things that were trying to be the yokes on my life. So I'm grateful that God has blessed me to
Yeah.
heal from at least that
Yeah.
part of my journey. I think healing is an ongoing experience. So I'm
Mhm.
still in the ministry of discovery even today with things that have been locked away.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. So for everyone that is tuning in, whether you're coming in now, whether you got here from the beginning, but you've heard Miss Shawn talk about, this is her third marriage. She's dealt with sexual abuse, even in the marriages. She did not feel worthy. She lost her brother tragically at 11. Okay. I'm getting somewhere here, y'all. She wasn't able to grieve. She lost her mom at 18, and that's when she first attempted to commit suicide. But you also hear her saying that she's an overcomer, and that
Ooh.
she decided to own it, and she decided to give it to God. And at some point, after whatever she had been through, whatever she had done, or whatever had been done to her, she decided to stop trying to fix it herself and give it to God. This is the definition of you still can.
Yes.
Because after you all have heard all of that, now you're about to hear Miss Shawn tell us about the seven-figure organization that has been created for solutions for her community. Okay, how did your relationship with God influence this? How did this come about? Like everything you have been through, people say, I don't look like what I've been through. You don't look like what you've been through. And with everything you've been through, you had reasons to just throw in the towel, give up, but you gave it to God. And not only did you give it to God, you said, I can relate to people in this situation, and I am going to help them and build an organization.
That's right. Well, I like to look like who I belong to and not what I've been through. God has used
Come
my
on, somebody.
story. He's used the journey that I'm on, to make it relatable
Yeah.
to the people that He's called me to serve. When He said to do the work of Zion, He gave me Isaiah 61:4 and told me to go and restore the desolate places. And that wasn't just a geographic space,
Mm.
but that was the souls within the community that I live in, which is very similar to the community that I was raised in. A lot of services, but the community being underserved. And so he gave it to me as an
Yeah.
opportunity to walk in this assignment of being a virtuous woman, to be the entrepreneur, to be nurturing as a mother when I needed to be the astute student, to help with education when I needed to. So he's pulled everything out of me to build this I call it legacy work, because the work will continue even after Zion doesn't have to be in the community. But it's seven figures because the work is diverse. So we're in healthcare, mental health care. We're in early childhood education, creating childcare preschools, but also showing residents how to launch those businesses, and not just those other businesses where they can monetize their own mission, whatever it is God's called them to do. My assignment is an apostolic one where I teach them how to establish that business so that they can replicate the solutions throughout not just Phoenix, but wherever they might live. And so that has produced the fruit of finance. And so I'm blessed to have a six-figure salary, but at a seven-figure organization, we hire from the community, but we serve whomever shows up. We call the campus the well, and that is significant to me because God met me at my point of need, just like Christ met the woman at the well and told her all about herself.
Yes.
He read her book. God did the same for me in that moment in the hospital, reading my book, but He met me there and began my journey of healing. And so, like that woman at the well, I get to run all over and tell the story and hopefully bring the souls to Him through Zion. And there's so many people that work with us that have a lived journey, that have something to offer. And so
Yes.
my role is just to show them how to monetize that and replicate a business solution that our community needs. So they get to build generational wealth for their families, to leave a legacy for their children's children, like the word says, leaving an inheritance for our children's children. But we also get to be an answer in the space where we live and work and serve and worship.
That is amazing. That is so amazing. Dr. Judy says 7 years. 7 is the number of completion.
All right.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And eight
That's a
is new
bar. Yes, it
beginning.
is. This
Yes.
is
So I got to,
absolutely amazing.
yes, yes. So with the work of
Yes, I love it.
Zion,
I love it. I love it.
I've actually expanded to do the Whisper Consulting, which actually focuses on women. I have a heart for teaching women how to walk out their journey to virtuous and how to be in the marketplace with that. And so the book Permission to Thrive is what I use to coach women all into to monetizing what is it God's called you to do and how we turn that into profit from their purpose. And so it's an exciting work that I'm certainly going to be doing more of in 2025. As I said earlier, I'm still on my own healing journey. So I was comfortable being in the shadows at Zion and being so busy on the campus that I couldn't get out and tell God's story. But He said, clear my calendar, prepare to travel. So I'm finally being obedient. I'm not negotiating. I'm being obedient and preparing to do that this coming year.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, how can we find the Zion Institute?
Well, you can find us on the web. Our the web address is thezioninstitute.org. And of course, we're on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We're at Zion Institute. Or you can come and see us on the south side of Phoenix if you're ever here in the midst of the heat. We're at 1522 East Southern Avenue in South Phoenix. So love to have you on the campus and show you around and see what your gift is.
Yes, I'm believing God that I will do a retreat in Arizona at some point in my life. And I know that we will be coming to pay you a
Oh,
visit.
definitely.
I know we will.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
I
yes.
love it.
So I
And
know
I
that
want
you
to do
also
it
have
for
a couple
retreat.
of books that you have written.
I have.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So tell us about your books.
So the first book is called Journey to Virtuous. It was the journal that I wrote to my children. When I survived, I decided to turn it into a book. It is on Amazon and several other places. Don't make me lie about where else they are. It's called Journey to Virtuous by Shawn Pearson, and it's the journal that I wrote to my children. I turned it into a book to specifically share with other women that have gone through or that are going through, to inspire them to understand that God still can and still will use us in spite of what our journey has been, and He'll use it for His glory. And then the second book, as I began to do the
Yes.
work of Zion Institute and encountering all the things that I am to be in the world of church and to be a woman in that season when Zion was getting started, it was not necessarily well received for me to be a woman with an apostolic call on my life. And so there were some experiences and some lessons learned. And so I turned some of those lessons into a study guide that I now use for women, that I use with my coaching. My coaching is called Journey to Virtuous, but that is Permission to Thrive. And so Permission to Thrive is really a theme that I try to live by with women, really encouraging them to give themselves permission to thrive. In keeping with what my mother used to say, you are a survivor, you are a survivor. I had to get to a point where I was no longer content with surviving, but I wanted to live in the fullness that God had for me and what Christ died for, which is for me to live an abundant life.
Yes.
And so that had to
Yes.
change my mindset in order for me to start thriving. And then I start talking to women about giving themselves permission to thrive. And so that's a journey that we take together with the book, and the workbook is involved, and those are in business or those that are just leading their homes. It's just so impactful to be able to share. Again, it's God's story in my life, but have women reflect on their own journeys and make some decisions to
Yeah.
answer the call to be great.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So I was trying to see if I seen the book so I can go ahead and share the link on Amazon. Do you
Oh,
have that
okay.
link?
You know what? I don't have it readily available. I wish I could put it in the chat. I can, we just
Hmm.
got private chat. I don't know if you can see this if I put it up here clear enough.
Hmm.
Can you
Yes,
see
we
that?
can see it. Permission to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, permission to
Okay.
thrive. Okay.
That is the
Thank
workbook for the
thanks.
women.
Both of
Okay.
you share. Okay.
And then the other one is Journey to
Yes.
Virtuous. I don't know
Someone
if you can
says,
see that one.
Amen. Okay. Amen. She is blessed. Look at God. He is a healer. All right,
He
y'all.
is.
So we're going to find these books before we get off of here. So, Permission to Thrive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
All right. If I don't see it, then I'll get the link from you and go back
Okay.
and post it. But I would
Okay.
love to, let's see, Permission to Thrive. Nope, that's not you. That's
Yeah,
Susan.
you
No,
might
not
want to
Susan.
put Shawn
Permission.
Pearson. You might
Nope,
want to
I
put
think I
the.
got it.
Okay.
Let me see the book again, Sean.
Can you see it?
I found it. Ah.
Amen.
All right, so I'm going to share this link in the chat. You all, I definitely suggest
Thank
that you go
you.
and purchase it. I am going to get in mine, absolutely, and it should come up any moment now. So, what would you like to leave the audience with today?
Exactly that. The title of the book, Permission to Thrive, really speaks to us giving ourselves permission to walk in exactly who God said we are. We are fearfully and wonderfully made in His image, in His likeness, and we have the ability to create things. I simply have a high school diploma. I am not college educated. I did not have time to do it. I discovered men and babies and marriage and all of those things. And so I have not completed college yet. I said I'll do it for myself at some point, but God is using my story as a point. His word talks about using the foolish things to confound the wise. So people are trying to figure out how the little girl with the high school diploma, is running a 7-figure organization and growing other people's businesses and making an impact on the world the way that I am. And the only explanation for it is God. And so I want to leave the viewers
Mm,
with that. With God, all things truly are possible. He can turn our mess into something miraculous, and our story can be His story in our life instead, and it can really inspire someone else. So we need your testimonies. Don't be ashamed of what you've been through. Just allow God to use it for His glory so that someone else would have hope and can discover who He is for themselves.
absolutely, absolutely. I love it. This has been absolutely amazing. I know that the women are blessed. I know that the replay watchers are going to be blessed. Make sure you go on that website, check out Zion Institute. Make sure you get the book. Make sure you follow her right here. You'll see all of her amazing pages. Listen, y'all, she is a social media influencer. She just be popping up. I'll be like, all right, now I love it. I love it. I love it. So her name is tagged in the description in this live. Make sure that you are following her so that you can see all the great things that she's doing and the great things that she has coming up. All right. Listen, thank you all so much for joining this episode of the You Still Can podcast. It was such a pleasure to have you here with us today, Miss Shawn. I want you all to have a blessed, wonderful, awesome night. Why? Because you deserve to, okay? Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.